downtown Edmonds on a snowy day. We're glad that you're able to join us here. My name is Barry Crane, and it's my privilege to welcome you to Mayor Dave Earling's 2019 version of the State of the City talk this morning. Carolyn Lefebvre, the mayor's assistant, suggested that I do housekeeping at this time. Housekeeping normally involves restrooms and cell phones. And so first, restrooms. There are 2 restrooms in the balcony, and then around the corner, if they're occupied, are the Mayor Dave Earling Memorial Public Toilets. If you would like to make yourself available of those, you're able to. Those in crisis have actually found that to be one of the best programs of this administration. The other thing that I would like to suggest to you this morning is regarding cell phones. We encourage you to not only turn off your cell phone, but to put it away. I was waxing eloquent in a sermon not too long ago when I looked down, and one of our younger pastors on the front row of the church was texting. And I stopped and I said, "Robin, are you texting?" And he said, without missing a beat, "It's God. He says you're doing a good job." So unless you're getting a text, a call, or an email from God, we would appreciate you putting your cell phone away this morning. Before Mayor Dave speaks to us, it's my privilege to introduce to you my friend Teresa Wippel, and she is going to share with us some thoughts about the community in which we live and work. Most of you will know that Teresa is the editor of our local news outlet, myedmondsnews.com. I have to tell you that I typically start my day checking over My Edmonds News and what's going on there. I guess as a pastor you could say I read it religiously. But it's a wonderful opportunity for us to know what's going on in our community. And what I have found is the coverage that Teresa gives us along with Larry is fair, it's full, and it's factual. And that is a tremendous blessing in a community like ours. Before I invite Teresa to the podium and encourage you to express your applause, I want to suggest to you that beyond simply welcoming her, I know that she would be grateful if you went to the website and became a patron, a sponsor of My Edmonds News as well. Join me in welcoming Teresa Wippel.
Did not pay him to say that. Good morning. It's really my honor to be here today. And when I was working on my remarks, I tried to channel my inner Olivia Olson. I don't know how many of you know Olivia, but she for years would speak at the annual Edmonds Memorial Day events, and she memorized her speeches, was flawless in her remarks, and I tried, but I couldn't quite meet her standards. So I'm going to be using my notes, and for that I apologize if that bothers anybody, but here we go. You know, I want to say also that it is my job as a community news person to cover the news, not be the news, which I often tell people who work with me, and we laugh about it. And so being on this side of the microphone's not something I'm necessarily used to, but in fact I was hoping to make this speech really more about all of you than me. And I wanted to start by thanking all of you. I know there are a lot of elected officials here today. There's city employees here today, the citizens who came out. And all of you work together to make this city, Edmonds, that I love and where I've lived for more than 30 years, the place that it is today. But I also recognize, and I think all of us do, that Edmonds is changing, and changes aren't easy for most of us. My 2 adult children no longer live in Edmonds, but they always marvel at the changes when they come back to visit. Breweries, nightlife, people out after 10 p.m. As the mayor likes to say, it's not Deadman's anymore. And that's what they used to call it when they were growing up, of course. I would like to add, though, that my son does get concerned when people start talking about removing the downtown to welcome to Edmonds downtown sign, but we'll talk about that another time. He's very definite that we should not do anything to that sign, which I think is interesting because he's only 30 years old. Although our elected officials may approach the task in different ways, They are working hard to ensure that our city not only addresses the needs of our current residents, but also paves the way for future generations. In other words, they are preparing for that inevitable change. And that's why I believe there's been so much spirited debate about important issues, and I see it so much in the comments on the website. We're worried and concerned about things like housing affordability and homelessness, public safety, traffic congestion, racial equity and inclusion, property taxes, environmental protection, and by the way, can't we just keep Edmonds the way it has always been? I would caution that as we move forward to the next set of challenges, we need to, as a community, be very mindful about how we work together to solve these problems. And there are many sides to the issues facing us, but we don't often hear all sides, and I know that's not a surprise to all of you here. That's because we tend to surround ourselves with people that we agree with, and we watch news that reflects our point of view. And I think that community news organizations like My Edmonds News and The Beacon play an important role in helping people learn about the issues that are facing the community, and also give all of you a place to exchange ideas, whether it's through a letter to the editor or online commentary. It is a chance for you to really work through what you're feeling and what you're thinking, and learn from your neighbors, even if you don't agree with them. And if you think local news coverage doesn't matter, I would offer this thought. A recent study showed a statistical correlation between the consumption of local news and voter turnout and civic participation in general. Turns out that adults who feel highly attached to their communities demonstrate much stronger ties to local news than those who do not feel attached. There's an actual link between a personal connection to the area and a desire to stay more informed about current issues and events. So, as we begin addressing the changes we face in our city, I hope that you will keep talking with your neighbors, especially those you disagree with, that you will keep an open mind, and above all, that you will keep reading your local news source. And now, I'm going to turn the podium over to Pastor Barry Crane, who, when I was talking with him earlier, he's been pastor at North Sound Church and the founder, although he pointed out to me that the founder was actually 2,000 years ago. He is going to have his remarks, and I really do need to go because I'm sure there are at least 5 comments on my website waiting moderation. Thank you.
I'm glad we don't have a comment section for sermons at North Sound Church. That's a good thing. Well, a while back I got a call from Mayor Dave, and he asked if I would be willing to join him once a month with a group of folks in an advisory board, or an advisory group really, to run things by that may be of interest to the citizens of Edmonds. And I was honored to receive the invitation, and when I showed up for the first meeting, I was especially privileged because of seeing the amazing people that were in the room who have invested so much in our city. But what I did discover was that while I thought my job would be an advisor, I discovered that I was going to be a coach. And that was a coach to Mayor Dave on his vocabulary. And what I discovered in that process was that sometimes Mayor Dave's vocabulary is, shall we say, colorful. And my job, it seemed, was to make him less articulate in some of those areas. The climactic moment in that regard was one meeting where our Mayor Dave uttered the oath, "Holy hell." Now, I raised my hand because as the faith group representative on that group, I needed to point out that holy hell was a contradiction in terms. It was certainly a theological contradiction in terms, probably a logical contradiction in terms, and so I pointed out to Mayor Dave an oxymoron. I didn't call him an oxymoron. The figure of speech was an oxymoron. And I hope my participation in the group, Mayor Dave, has been more effective than my coaching on your vocabulary. But I do have 9 months, I think, left, and we'll see what we can do during that time. If you could be careful this morning in a public gathering, we would appreciate that. You want me to sit down now? Edmonds is not just a geographical entity that we call a city. It's not just a political unit. It's a community, and it's made up of people like all of you who have gathered in this room this morning, government and business and education and healthcare, and individuals like many of you who are just concerned citizens. Together, we have, I believe, the ability to determine what kind of community we will be. Almost 2 months ago, we remembered the life and work of Martin Luther King Jr., his incredible legacy. And in 1957, he talked about two approaches to community. These are his words. He said, "Love is creative and redemptive. Love builds up and unites. Hate tears down and destroys. The aftermath of the fight fire with fire method is bitterness and chaos. The aftermath of the love method is reconciliation and the creation of a beloved community." He went on to say, "Often love is crucified and buried in a grave, but in the long run it rises up and redeems even that which crucifies it." I was captivated by the expression beloved community. Mayor Dave has given me 7 minutes, and I've used probably at least 3 of those. And so in 5 minutes when I close, you may say, well, he is a bit naive. He doesn't embrace reality. He may even be a little bit out of touch. And yet, I have a profound belief that regardless of what happens in the other Washington, we can build a beloved community here in Edmonds. A couple of weeks ago, Robin Fenn, who is here somewhere, where are you, Robin? Robin, with the other folks at Verdant, put on for us a community gathering about healthy community. And the keynote speaker for the event was Eric Kleinenberg. And I had the privilege of speaking to you all 3 years ago, and I quoted Eric's book back then, and it was amazing to actually see him live and in person and have him elaborate on the work that he did several years ago in his book called Heat Wave. He's now a professor of sociology and director of the Institute for Public Knowledge at New York University. So Eric brought up this study, and very briefly in Heat Wave, he talks about the heat wave that hit Chicago in 1995. He talked about its devastating effects. The temperature went up, people turned their air conditioners on, the power grid went out, and the combination of heat and humidity gave a feel of about 120 degrees. There were 2 communities, identical demographically, that had a radically different response to the heat wave. And in one community, you were 10 times more likely to die in the heat wave than in the other community. What was the difference? Well, these 2 communities, Englewood and Auburn Gresham, were very different communities. In Auburn Gresham, people were connected by relationships. Ray Swanson, who lived in Auburn Gresham for nearly 50 years, said this. He said, "During the heat wave, we were doing wellness checks, asking neighbors to knock on each other's doors. Our block clubs usually know who's alone, who's aging, who's sick. It's what we always do when it's very hot or very cold outside." Now, I don't know if Auburn Gresham passes the bar of being a beloved community, but it sure is on the right direction. The people were connected. They had rich relationships. They cared for each other. So how do we in Edmonds build upon the foundation that Mayor Dave has laid for us and develop even more of a beloved community? I think it's a big agenda, and government and business and service organizations and education and churches have an important part in all of this, but ultimately I think it boils down to individual choices. So this morning, before I close, I want to tell you very quickly about 3 individuals. 3 individuals that you may never have heard of, but they happen to call me pastor, so I know them. And they are 3 people who work to make Edmonds a beloved community. First is Jack Hoover, CEO of Foundation for International Services. Jack moved his business to downtown Edmonds, employing 30 people in 2012. In addition to developing a strong business, Jack has invested in the community. He makes the 5th Place, a wonderful hospitality room available for groups within our community for free. Recently, Jack gave his employees a gift And having given them a gift, he said, there's only one caveat, and the caveat is you need to spend this money in downtown Edmonds. Many of you would not know that Jack, who has developed this successful business, also spends the spare time he can find mentoring students at the University of Washington. He's helping to make Edmonds a beloved community. Secondly, my relationship with the Campbell family began a number of years ago when Bob Campbell and Cece became part of our congregation. And if you've never met Bob, you're missing something. You need to. If you meet him, you'll never forget him. He has a wonderful sense of humor. One Sunday morning, he came to me, told me that he and Cece were having marital problems. He said, Pastor, this morning she said to me, Robert, you haven't spoken to me all weekend. And I said, well, Cece, I didn't want to interrupt you. So, in recent times, Kurt and Craig Campbell have taken over the business. I got to tell you, Mayor Dave loves auto dealerships in Edmonds. They provide $1.8 million annually to our tax base. Thank you, Scott, for that information. And in addition to employing 100 people at the Edmonds store, Kurt and Craig every December bring in the leaders of about 30 or 40 nonprofits in the area. They treat them to a lunch, they give them time to share stories with one another and give them a lovely gift as they head out. In addition to that, throughout the year, they actually support most of these nonprofit organizations financially as well. Just a couple of weeks ago, Kurt called and said, Pastor Barry, I have an idea. You and Barb and Carrie and I need to start having people over for dinner to listen to their stories. He said, I've begun to do this with my staff and my men's group, and it has amazing results. Friends, Kurt understands that the beloved community begins with relationships, with connection, and with listening. And finally, on Dayton Street, about 2 blocks from here, is a place called The Center. You may walk by it and not even notice that it's there, but it was founded by Dr. Greg Jans and LaFawn. Their vision was for a medical facility that would use a team approach and holistic medicine to treat people with mental health issues. And so their team includes a doctor who gives a medical exam, a psychiatrist, nutritional counseling, guest membership at Harbor Square Athletic Club, along with traditional counseling and medication. People come to the center from all over the country. In fact, 60 to 75% come into Edmonds from elsewhere. Greg employs 42 people there in downtown Edmonds at the clinic. And when you do the math on the people that come in, they typically come in for a month. They stay in downtown Edmonds. They don't have a car. Greg tells me they spend about $1,500 here in the community during that month. That contributes $500,000 to our local community. But beyond that, and far more importantly, is the fact that, as the tagline of the center indicates, it's a place of healing. The center, a place of hope, changing lives for the good. The center was recently voted one of the top centers for treating depression in the United States. Friends, hurting people come to Edmonds and discover it's indeed a place of hope, a beloved community. Jack and Kurt and Greg are just representatives of so many of you in this room who it's been my privilege to meet, who are working to make this a beloved community. Imagine what would happen if everyone in our community joined in that effort. I close with one quick story. John Gardner was Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare in the Lyndon Johnson administration and the moving force behind Medicare. He was the lone Republican in that administration. In fact, it appears President Johnson wasn't even aware of that, because as he was about to introduce him and make the appointment, he said, "You are a Democrat, aren't you?" And John responded, "Well, I'm a man who loves his country." When John passed away, his memorial service was held at the Stanford University Chapel. It was a big crowd of notable people. In fact, handing out bulletins at the front door were Senators Tim Wirth and Bill Bradley. And on the back of the bulletin, there was a quote from a speech that John Gardner gave in 1965 during the battle time over Medicare, and it said this: "America today faces breathtaking opportunities disguised as insoluble problems." And friends, I want to believe this morning that the seemingly insoluble problems we face nationally can begin to be fixed when we resolve to join together and make this place, Edmonds, Washington, a beloved community. Perhaps then we can begin to have even a little hope for a beloved nation. Thank you for the privilege of sharing. Thank you, Mayor Dave, for allowing me to do this today. This year, prior to Mayor Dave's talk, we are featuring a 5-minute video produced by our own Teresa Wippel and Carolyn Douglas that is a summary of the accomplishments that have been made in our city in 2018. Let's enjoy it together. that's a lot of stuff that got done last year. Thank you to Mayor Dave, to our city council, and for those of you that are part of the staff, the amazing directors that we have here in the city of Edmonds. When Mayor Dave asked me to speak today, he had not yet declared his intention to not run this fall again for another term as mayor. And so now that he has done so, I would like personally and perhaps on behalf of us to express my thanks, even though he will continue to serve in this office for another 9 or 10 months or so, to express my thanks to him and for the faithful support of Susan for the amazing run, only part of which we have seen here in this video, Mayor Dave. Dave has put our city on a firm financial footing, developed a balance between our environment and development, embraced diversity, built bridges, encouraged vibrant business and shopping, dining, and the arts in our city, and as you've seen, so much more. And so as Mayor Dave comes, would you join me in thanking him and Susan for all they have done for our community and the foundations that they have laid for the future.
I do not have in my remarks anything about this would be hard to do. But it has been a very fun, and I mean that, a very fun ride for 7+ years. And I do need to do some housekeeping things. First of all, I'd like to turn off the microphone, but he was supposed to have done that. But who's going to blame him? I won't. We do have some guests here this morning that I'd really like to acknowledge, and let's hold an applause until we get through all of them. If I don't read your name, it means you lost the election, or you didn't talk to me so that I know you're here. But here are the folks that I know that are here who I think deserve some special recognition. First of all, from our city council, we have Adrian Fraley-Meneas today, Dave Teitzel, Diane Buckness, Mike Nelson. I'm honored to have my good friend Nicholas Smith here, the mayor of Edmonds. That was on purpose. The mayor of Linwood. We really have developed a terrific relationship. She teases me and I tease her, even though I'm more right than she is. We also have, as I know, 2 members of the Port District that are here, Dave Preston and Jim Orvis. From the public sector, we have Robin Fenn from Verdant, Emmett Heath, who is the CEO of Community Transit, Sarah Zabel, who is the CEO of Swedish. And I think that's all I know about. If there's any of you who have not gotten your name out, you can blame Jessica Hanami. Oh, I see. Really? Oh, excuse me. Didn't I say Neil?
No.
And Neil Tibbet. And we also have Chris McDuffie here. So let's give all of them, if you would, a round of applause. I admire Teresa for trying to memorize her comments. I'm not making any effort to do that. My pitch is 27 pages. Now it's large print, so that'll give you some. So I'll get through the first 3 pages in about 10 seconds. No. Nonetheless, though, we also have someone else here that I'd like to acknowledge, and I'd like this person to stand up and be acknowledged, and that's my wife, Susan. Susan, would you stand up? we are in our 49th year and headed towards 50th on December 27th. So there'll be several celebrations as we get towards the end of the year. I also want to, myself, thank Teresa and Barry for consenting to be the warm-up speakers. They're really such valuable pieces of the fabric of our community. And another person, we have our resident scribe here. He's been with us the last 2 years, Tim Corey from Calibri. We give him a round of applause. So, creating a strong community for the future. Where do you begin when we speak of creating a strong community for the future? I believe to talk about the future, you must first know and understand what we've done in the past to prepare and how that preparedness will launch us into the future. Over the next 25 to 30 minutes, I want to outline for you the progress the community has made over the past 7 years to position itself for the future. I will highlight many of our economic development successes, along with the financial improvements and other major achievements we have had. As you'll see, many of the steps we've taken are interdependent and cause positive influence one on another. When I was sworn in on December 27, 2011, that was a long time, excuse me, wrong word. Geez, that was a long time ago. I made a few remarks, emphasizing really 2 key points. One of those points was my concern regarding our city finances. And as you may recall, in 2011, we more or less had hit rock bottom in the economy. Back then, we found it necessary to make some hard decisions to try to stabilize our finances. Those hard decisions included an across the board, and the staff will remember this, 4% budget cuts across all departments, and we lost 12 of our staff members. With those changes, along with obviously an improved economy and several3 strategic decisions we made over the course of the past 7 years, we've come far. I'd like to show you 3 examples of some of the success that we've had with improvement in our finances. From 2013 to 2018, I asked staff to go back and go through a series of exercises, and you'll get to see what they are today. The first one is the improvement of our sales tax. If you look at 2013, our sales tax was $5.4 million. This past year, when we finished the year, we are at $8,400,000. That's a terrific increase, and it comes from strategic decisions often that we made to improve the environment. The second one I'd like to show you is the real estate excise comparison from 2013 to 2018. We only increased, 80-some%. Anyway, the revenue certainly picked up there again. The third one I'd like to show you, and it's less money, but it's one that I have particular pride in, and that is I've had Dave Earling and Scott James in my office several times to talk about refinancing our bonds, and I'd like to have you have a look at the refinance income that we've achieved. Smaller numbers, but what a dramatic increase. How many increases have you had in your business for what was it? Only 1.143,000%. That's a good track record. Today, though, I am happy that I can now report to you that our bank account is now just fine. Thank you very much. You've often heard me speak of the quality and aggressive nature of our staff in seeking and competing for grants and other funding. Perhaps the two areas which have been the most aggressive and successful, they also have most opportunities, are the Parks Department and the Public Works/Engineering Department. And lest we forget, we have been very successful working with our legislators to fund very important projects to our city. Our local legislative representatives have worked hard and effectively representing our needs. Just in the Parks Department alone, in this 6-year period, the parks have been successful in bringing $16,600,000 to the city of Edmonds for our parks programs. That deserves a round of applause. Now we're going to one-up them because the Public Works and Engineering Department have been even more successful. In that same 6-year period, they've generated $43,700,000. For a total, folks, just from those two departments, $60,700,000. Give them a round of applause. Stepping away from dollars for a while, have you noticed the energy, the vitality, the demographic changes in all parts of our community over those 6 years that I mentioned? Let's do a show of hands exercise. Anyone who has lived or worked in this community for the last 10 years, would you raise your hands and keep them up? And let's add a few more by saying those people who have been here 5 years or more. Would you please raise your hands? Look around, folks. There's lots of hands up. And I hope you folks have recognized that there have been some changes in our community during that time. It's pretty dramatic stuff. One of the important changes, which has been simply fun for me, is to see the changes in the demographics in our community. 10 or 15 years ago, if you came to downtown on a sunny summer morning, you would find a couple of strollers and their parents attached. Now, with that same summer sunny afternoon or morning, you'll find that there are young families, lots of kids, strollers, seniors, and even some pets. Beyond the demographics, we have seen revitalization in our community. We have become a community focused on healthier food choices and exercise, a walkable community with parks for our children, entertainment for all, and restaurants and shops for our dining and shopping needs. Speaking of parks, and I am, Edmonds is blessed to have so many wonderful ones. Waterfront parks, forest parks, neighborhood parks, and playfields. And with the redevelopment of Civic Field, we are creating one more legacy for future generations to enjoy. Remember, kids. Within the city, we've also seen growth of a thriving entertainment scene, a vibrant new waterfront district, a large choice of restaurants, music venues, and playhouses scattered across the city, provide a host of options for us all. Adding to the entertainment scene and to an already amazing collection of businesses along the corridor, for instance, from the waterfront up to 6th Avenue, we're going to have, besides the busy businesses there now, we're going to be adding 3 or 4 additional restaurants in that stretch. This is true confession time. I have for years believed that this corridor should be a walking corridor where people had an opportunity to explore the city and enjoy the city. This is transformed into a walking corridor with restaurants, shops, and intimate gathering places. We're getting very close to that vision. In fact, today I'm pleased to call success. Success. I just wanted to see a smile or two. I don't give a damn about whether you give me applause or not. Moving forward, though, we have our sights set on other obvious corridors, some of them downtown, some of them not. Two that I'd like to highlight today is Westgate. A couple of years ago, the council, knowing the importance of the Westgate area, modified some zoning regulations to encourage a better mix of housing and businesses in the neighborhood to allow for the projected changes that we're expecting. In fact, we see them going on around us all the time. And that new addition is the Village Westgate apartment complex, which is under construction and I think will be completed by mid-year. The new apartments will add to the already very active business community currently in place. The second corridor I'd like to highlight is another long-term effort for Highway 99. And many quality pieces in that area is what we want to add. Because of that, the council again modified some zoning in this area to improve businesses and bring additional housing. Along this corridor, we already have very important, successful automobile dealerships, the very successful International District, and the ever-growing medical campus surrounding Swedish Hospital. We have a $10 million state grant to make traffic improvements coming to us in 2021. The land use changes made by the council so far have brought us two very important projects. One is a new car dealership will be up and in place this year, and we will have a 182-unit apartment complex to add to Highway 99. Another part of the city's revitalization is the influx of new businesses choosing to set up shop in Edmonds. These businesses not only provide services to our community, they also provide jobs. We have worked hard to get the word out that Edmonds is a great place to do business, and our work is paying off. One cannot speak of progress made by the city without mentioning the contribution of the planning, engineering, and public works departments. Too often overlooked by some, they show the way in planning for the city's future and executing, maintaining major projects in our community. In the planning area, during the 6-year period, 2013 to 2018, business activity dramatically accelerated in the second floor. And any of the people on the second floor can certainly attest to that. Major planning and inspection department undertakings include, in the 6-year period, Westgate Village Apartments, Magic Toyota, Salish Crossing, Edmonds Memory Care, Madrona School, Point Edwards Building 10, and the post office apartments, which should be completed sometime this year too. And oh, by the way, in those 6-year period, 293 new home permits issued. And this is in a city that's all built out. Well, maybe not. On the Public Works Engineering Department, besides the projects that I just mentioned, because they are involved, other major improvements include, I assume that one's up, the Veterans Plaza intersection at 228, Highway 99, intersection improvements at 76th and 212, also includes the Bike to Health program. You'll see the bike lanes on 76, fishing pier rehabilitation, 10.7 miles of water main replacement, 4 miles of sewer replacement, and 48 lane miles of street paving. And just as a slight aside, let's acknowledge the public works crews that were out in the snow, not this morning, but for our big snowstorm, 12-hour shifts, 24/7. The Public Works Department are the ones that kept the streets clean. Would you give them a round of applause? When I review the impact of the work accomplished with the 2 slides that I've just seen, knowing these projects are only the larger accomplished projects, the work of our staff is nothing short of marvelous. All of these things come together to create more opportunity for our community and for people to experience our community. Edmonds has become a daytime destination for folks wanting to get away from the hustle and bustle and for a day live the small town life. I've seen that before, that's why I didn't turn around. Many of you know I'm a strong advocate for the arts. We've long believed Edmonds to be known regionally as an arts community. In part, that is and was true, but we're not as well known as we hoped we were. In part, that is true, but we were not as well known as we had actually thought. In the past 7 years, we've taken great steps to increase the visibility of the arts and culture here in Edmonds. And in the process, we've increased our stature in the arts community. We have made spectacular progress in the past 6 or 7 years. While the Edmonds Arts Festival is in fact our historic foundation, we've dramatically moved forward. The Edmonds Center for the Arts acts now as a year-round magnet. And how many cities our size have a historic downtown theater? It's this one. But in addition to that, the Olympic Ballet, the Barclay Shelton Dance Studio, Driftwood Theater, Phoenix Theater, Cascadia Art Museum, Cascade Symphony, Snow King Chorale, the exterior murals in our downtown business area, art galleries, art walks, writer workshops, and the list goes on. Another step in creating more visibility for Edmonds is as an arts and cultural center was our selection in December of 2018 by Governor Jay Inslee as the state's first certified creative district. This was a very important honor and an important step. Creative districts provide a platform for communities to grow their arts and culture and related creative economies. In 2018, we also completed research on the economic impact of the arts in Edmonds. The results show that the arts and culture sector in Edmonds means big business. The sector supports Edmonds' overall economic health and the community vibrancy. The strengths that the community and strengthens the community's regional image, proving to us that we are, in fact, on the right track. We've also been focusing on the importance of maintaining and caring for our environment, becoming stewards, if you will, for our surroundings. We have for years worked to reduce consumption of plastics, first under the leadership of Representative Strom Peterson, who was on the council at the time, with the reduction of plastic bags, and now under the leadership of the council, the Mayor's Climate Protection Committee, and the city has banned non-compostable food containers and currently is working on instituting a ban on single-use straws and utensils. In 2018, the city partnered with EnviroStars, Washington's Green Business Program. After the first full year of implementation, 7 local businesses have joined the ranks of EnviroStars, who have experienced more efficiency, lower utility bills, improved worker safety, and more healthy and productive workplaces. The major effort we will undertake in the coming years is the restoration of the Edmonds Marsh. We have set the stage for this important restoration. Working with our council, staff, consultants, the Save Our Marsh Group, and the state of Washington, we await the transfer of the property just south of the marsh from Unocal to the Washington State Department of Transportation, so we can daylight a channel from the marsh to Puget Sound, which will be the linchpin then for restoring salmon habitat. So, how do we package together all of the pieces we've covered this morning? Well, in many ways, but here are a few which have contributed. First, we've worked hard to let the people outside our community know about the daily draws we have in Edmonds, the unique small town ambiance, our fabulous parks, the variety of quality restaurants, including our evolving restaurant row, which I've already talked about. Also, our outstanding and sensational quality of our art programs, the waterfront, our many festivals, and the addition of new exciting businesses like Puget Sound Express whale watching businesses, which, by the way, folks, bring 20,000 people to Edmonds every year. As mentioned earlier, we've been emphasizing the unique draw Edmonds has as a daytime destination for those who wish to get away for a day, an evening, away from the crush and hubbub of the larger metropolitan cities. We've done this through work with local media and expanded outreach to regional sources, as well as through visual and printed media, calling attention to new businesses such as Puget Sound Express, Marquette, Ace Hardware, Jacobson Marine, new car dealerships, and others. Emphasizing our family lifestyle, we strike a very positive image. All of this, together with Edmonds' recognition by Where to Retire magazine, and on the travel site TripAdvisor is one of the 25 best family beach spots to visit in the United States. Just recently, we were added to Trivago's recommendation of Edmonds as one of 8 cities in the state of Washington that was a must-visit visit. Good stuff, folks. Give ourselves a round of applause. Remember, kids. And again, let's not forget our selection by Governor Inslee as the first city in the state of Washington designated as a creative district. One cannot live in this community long without being impressed with the volunteers we have. In fact, citizen involvement is a key thread in our city government's success. Just the raw numbers of city government boards, commissions, and committees is 16. A few examples are, of course, the Planning Board, the Architectural Design Board, Sister City Commission, the new Youth Commission, Diversity Commission, Economic Commission, and the Arts Commission. In the private sector, we have volunteers from lots of different organizations. Edmonds Center for the Arts, Cascadia Art Museum, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Arts Festival. In short, folks, our community becomes stronger with volunteers, and it brings the community closer together. So let's stand back and think about how we've begun creating a strong community for the future. We've brought back our finances, which were in a painful state, to a positive, stable position. We've worked hard to recover let me start this one over. We worked hard to recover and update our infrastructure, which fell behind from the challenges from the recession. We've expanded and improved our park system, and we've developed stronger business districts. With the improved business climate and more focus on community amenities, we are attracting a wider range of demographics. We've enriched the community through the expansion of the arts, our parks, the waterfront, and with community support, we've expanded special events like the Christmas holiday season, 4th of July celebrations, summer market, the Edmonds Arts Festival, as well as added some, in this case, relatively new ones, the clam chowder cook-off, which was just, 3 weeks ago? I guess something like that. In addition, we've created gathering places like our city parks, coffee shops, restaurants, concerts, providing us with the opportunity to come together and get to know one another better. We at the city have worked hard to find ways to communicate with the citizens of Edmonds and at the same time expand communication to the region. Even with big box stores, without big box stores, shopping malls, or any kinds of industrial businesses, we found our niche, successfully creating a healthy and vibrant community, a quality of life we can all be proud of. We are taking on large new projects which look to the future, provide dramatic and much needed improvements, such as the long-term commitment to Highway 99 to enrich that very important corridor. Vast improvements to create a dramatic new central park in the heart of downtown, now known as Civic Field. The dramatic waterfront center, which will be another gathering place for the community, and the waterfront connector, which will improve public safety and provide access to and from the waterfront for walking and bicycling. These projects are impressive and will greatly enhance Edmonds for the future generations. Remember, kids. Amidst all the progress made, we need to remember that we are still facing sizable challenges as we look to the future. I won't devote a lot of time on the following list I'm going to show you. But they are major challenges, and I see them coming, and we must focus this morning in on them if we can. The first one that I want to highlight is continuing financial stability. One that we've worked hard to bring, and we need to find skill sets that will allow that sort of progress to continue. The second one I wanted to mention is continue being aggressive on the infrastructure improvements. We have an old city here. What is it, 127 years old now, I think? And so we have infrastructure needs, and we need to stay aggressive on that as we still try to recover from the recession. Pursue and complete legacy projects like Civic Field, Highway 99, Waterfront Connector, restoring the marsh and daylighting Willow Creek, and the Waterfront Center. Pursue funding for affordable housing, homelessness, and addressing the opioid epidemic. Maintaining the desirability of Edmonds as a daytime destination. And finally, one word, parking. You've heard about it, right? And just so you know, we're in the process, I think, of beginning to solve some of those problems. By marking the streets, we actually created more parking places. We are able to vacate a small lot of 14 spaces and turn it into a 3-hour time. So we've improved and found ourselves some additional parking. But the bigger picture needs to be looked at, and the planning department will be doing a parking study this year. We're also involved in conversation with Sound Transit, with the port, and the city in trying to look at how we can improve parking down and around Salish Crossing, as an example, and how some of those parking places might be utilized for the uptown area also. So there is stuff in motion. Just keep driving around the block until you can find this one. And I just thought of this. As of January 1st, I'm going to have to find my own parking space. Damn. Those of you who have been to these presentations in the past know that at times I introduce staff who have done outstanding work for me, for you, and for the community. Today I want to highlight a group of people who have worked together to advance the city on many fronts. And they're simply really good people. I'd like to ask the 7 directors of the City of Edmonds to please stand and be recognized. Come on, folks, stand up. The real challenge, and I couldn't see back there, Carrie Height had foot surgery. And I just wanted to see her try to stand up. Oh, you did it. Good. Great. At my first day to the city, whoops, I got one more thank you. And I hope you all know what it might be. I've already introduced my wife, so that's over. But for the past 7 years, I have worked very closely with my executive assistant, Carolyn LaFay. I get to say some nice stuff. You know, we've worked very closely for 7 years. I'm sure there's times, in fact, I know there's times that she's walked out of the room griped at me, and there's a couple of times that I've probably been pretty grumpy around her, too. But I've got to tell you, this is a person who is completely devoted to her job. She sends me out the door with whatever I need to be sent out with. She keeps a very efficient office. You know, when we started the mayor's office 7 years ago, we had 2 people in the office. 7 years later, we're way up to 2 people. And she has done a magnificent job. She's friendly. She helps citizens, as they call them. I can't say enough good things, but I'd like to have Carolyn, who I'm not quite sure where she's at. She's been in the back booth. Give her a round of applause. At my first State of the City presentation, I spoke of the importance of Edmonds being actively involved in the Puget Sound region. Many of our key staff members are engaged in work specific to their discipline and are highly respected throughout the county, the region, and the state. In addition, many of our council members are engaged in a variety of efforts ranging from the county health district, the county housing, to public safety, from countywide planning issues to regional transportation, from key environmental issues to homelessness and opioid epidemic. An impressive list, which is important and assures Edmonds is causing influence on behalf of the city throughout the region and the state. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, I think you know, this is my last State of the City. I have enjoyed the work, and that's kind of hard for some people to believe when they read my Edmonds News, the Edmonds Beacon. But it has been a real privilege to get to know the wonderful staff that we have in this city. I hope you all understand the quality that we have with our staff. To get to know you, the citizens, a bit better. It has just been such an honor. My wife even said, okay, if you want to run again, go ahead. I don't know if she's thought that or not. But, it has just been a privilege, and I need to thank you, the community, for 7 years of really wonderful life. Thank you very much.